and destruction. I've not spoken with anyone, citizens or police officers alike, who aren't sickened and appalled at what took place. I want to share with you and assure you that this is definitely, it is not representative law enforcement officers in our agency or any other agencies in McLean County. There simply is no place for this type of conduct in our society. Our department has a long history of coming together to discuss difficult issues and have worked hard to develop relationships for meaningful improvements within our community. We are committed to continuing this process, but today I want to direct my comments to providing some information with the public on the events that took place on Sunday evening and some of the actions that have taken place since that time. Once we get through these, I will give an opportunity for those to ask questions. I would ask that you would raise your hand on the Zoom app here. I also wanted to say that State's Attorney Don Knapp is on the call. He will be limited in some of the information he can provide, obviously, because of some of the charges and what may be going on, but I thought it was important for him to be on this to share any information or answer any questions that he might be able to. On Sunday evening, obviously, we began early on to hear some information about possible looting and vandalism at various locations around our community. We learned about potential businesses that might have been infected. We put a plan together, we deployed resources, and throughout the evening, especially after dark, we spent quite a bit of time curtailing most of those attempts. And unfortunately, sometime after or shortly before midnight, there was an attempt at the Target store. Individuals were able to breach that door. We were able to push some groups back. After that, we had to stay there for a period of time as we were unable to secure that. Crowds continued to grow, and as a result, it was unsafe for our officers to remain there, and we had to leave. That then resulted in, obviously, some destruction, some looting at that location. We then had to regroup. Once we regrouped, we were able to redeploy. We also discovered that similar things that happened at Walmart. We then took appropriate action working with those businesses and restoring order there. As a result of those, we have worked tirelessly since that time. We have some arrests that we've made as a result of that for looting. We had 4 individuals that were arrested on Sunday night, Monday morning, and they were charged with burglary, looting, and mob action. They had a range of bonds anywhere from $40,000 to $200,000 as a result. We'll share that information with the public through a formal release, but I wanted to make sure that it was known that we did make those 4 arrests at that time. It's also important to share that we have a host of other investigations that we are doing and that we're working through at this time on additional cases. We've been able to identify other individuals, and our staff is working tirelessly to bring those into place or into custody. Obviously, there's been a lot said about what happened as far as the negative, the destruction, and the damage. There's not been, what hasn't been documented, I guess, is all the multiple attempts that were made at businesses throughout the night on Sunday night and Monday night to damage or breach local businesses that were not successful because of the work of the staff and our staff and other agencies. There have been a tremendous amount of outstanding work by our officers, putting their safety at risk to serve the community. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that they have done and their sacrifice to restore order and to help instill confidence in the public. We stand beside and support anyone's rights to peacefully protest, but when individuals use this as a veil to commit civil disobedience, violence and damage we must act to restore order. I want to tell you that as the community, we've been working since that time tirelessly with not only our individuals in our agency, but with our local law enforcement partners. Not only local, but our county, state, and federal officials. to do everything in our power to prevent any additional damage and to preserve order in our community. I also would like to thank the Bloomington Police Department, McLean County Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, the Illinois State Police, Illinois State University Police, for their assistance over the last several days in dealing with these very difficult times. At this time, I would certainly be willing to answer any questions that you may have regarding this. I did want to say one thing. State's Attorney Knapp and I, there is another, we're going to have to wrap this up probably about 4:20 or 4:25 as we have another meeting that we have to break away to. I did also want to say I just learned before coming on here that there was an additional individual in addition to the 4 who was arrested just this afternoon. He has been brought into the department. He was then taken to the county jail. He's being held in lieu of bond until official charges can be made by the state's attorney's office. But that was in relation to the inciting of the riot outside of the Target on Sunday night, Monday morning, as well as the acts of violence against the officer and officers in the loop. So with that, I would answer any questions you may have. Eric Stock. Eric, I think you're on mute. I can't hear you there.
Sorry about that. Do you know how many businesses in all were targeted on Sunday night and Monday night? And is there an estimate as to the extent of the damage, the cost of the losses to those businesses?
No, I mean, that's part of our ongoing efforts working with the business community. We're again working in tandem with them. We know that there were multiple businesses all throughout Northeast Normal that were targeted. Again, our staff was successful in repelling most of those with the assistance of other local agencies. We also did have a few others that were sporadic throughout town, but most of those were unsuccessful individuals that tried to get into a particular business but was unable to do so. Some of those on our western side and the northern part of town. Anyone else?
Chief, I believe State's Attorney Knapp would like to speak.
Okay, I can't see the...
Actually, that was Mr. Lucas, Pam.
Oh, yep, I see it. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
Lucas, go ahead.
Yes. So this is Lon Lucas, News Director, Channel 25 in Peoria. Question for anyone here. One of the suspects that's been arrested, we're hearing that is one of the suspects brought a child there. Can you confirm that one of the suspects apparently was a mother and brought her child to the target?
I know that one of those individuals, certainly, we did have, the individuals, there were 2 females and there were 2 males, ranging in age from 19 to 28. And so I was not aware that there was a child there, but that is, I can't confirm that right now.
If I may jump in, my understanding was that the mother with the child was at the Cole incident last night, not at the Target incident. If I could just jump in and make things work a little bit better, in the upper right-hand side of your menu, there's a participants button. And if you use that and there's a way to raise your hand there, it's going to be a lot easier for Chief Fleishner to see you.
Oops.
All right. Eric?
Let me try this again. Yes, Chief, can you talked about curtailing efforts to minimize the damage on Sunday night and last night. Can you give us give us an overview of what those specific efforts are, and do you expect that to change in the coming nights if there are problems that develop again?
Yeah, good question. I appreciate you asking that. I'm not going to go into a bunch of specifics about it, obviously, because we don't want to telegraph what we've done. But I can tell you that our plan, again, we worked tirelessly on that. We worked with our other local law enforcement partners, and we modify that on a regular basis. So on an ongoing basis, if there's things that we see that need adjustment, we will do that. Again, we have a very strong focus, obviously, on businesses and protection of businesses. We've worked with many of those, reaching out to those, talking with them, to make sure that we share what information we can and listen to them and hear what their concerns are. But yeah, our plan was developed, obviously, with public safety in mind. These situations, again, like I mentioned before, we honor anybody's and stand with anybody that wants to demonstrate, but it turns to civil disobedience and there's violence and there's damage, then we have to step in and take action. And our plan is geared around that. Our plan is geared around that, working with our local partners to catch these and disperse these things and handle them at a level before they get to that point. So utilizing that with our local intelligence and seeing how we can try and head those off and prevent the situations from happening, rather than getting there and seeing that now we've got a large group of individuals at one particular location. Eric? I believe you're muted, sir.
I thought I unmuted it. Sorry. What are you specifically telling businesses to do in preparation for this evening?
The same message that we've been telling them, we told them yesterday, and that is that, you know, if they are, we want to share what their operational plans are, what their hours of operation are, and then we share with them and talk with them about what our plans are there, so that we have an open flow of communication. So again, working in concert with our local partners, but also the business community, to figure out and share with them what that plan is. And again, not trying to get into a bunch of details, but obviously when you have individuals either on foot or by vehicle, we develop our plan associated with that and how we can then prevent them, large groups, from gathering in specific locations. And that's what our tactics are driven by right now, how we can do that safely for our officers, safely for the businesses, and safely for anyone who may be out.
Rick, Sierra Henry has had her hand up here for a bit.
Who was that? I'm sorry. I'm not seeing that. Okay.
Sierra, you're muted.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Chief.
Okay.
I was wondering, did you say that how many incidents you responded to last night, and what kind of de-escalation measures you're taking when responding to those incidences?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific number. I can tell you there were numerous, beginning from probably about 9 o'clock last night until about 3 or 4 this morning. Again, there were numerous ones. Our de-escalation tactics, I mean, officer presence sometimes is the beginning of that. Many times if individuals see officers in the area, that's a deterrent. And so that's part of our plan, is to focus on having a saturation of officers in those areas, so that, one, it's hopefully is a deterrent to anybody that would want to do anything wrong. And then additionally, if we do have to act, we've got ample staff that can respond in a very timely manner to deal with that. So catching it small before it has to escalate, that's what our plan has been. Eric?
Yes, Chief, the arrests of more than a dozen individuals since yesterday, how much does that put a dent into this, do you feel? And how much of a deterrent do you feel that might be to mitigate this in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, our hope is that, by taking off those individuals that seem to be the instigators, that seem to be the ones that are at the root of those issues, then that's going to stem future problems. And so our hope is that gradually, we will see that, maybe very quickly see that reduced. And again, that's what part of our plan is. It's flexible. If we see things that are starting to increase, we can address it. But our hope is that all of our efforts that we've made to this point are paying dividends. So, but yes, if those arrests, and I think the message sent from that in the judiciary and the state's attorney's office, certainly I don't want to speak for say NAP, but is that not only law enforcement, but the public doesn't stand for this, and we take this very seriously when we have damage and this type of theft and looting. We send a strong message. Eric, you're muted, sir.
Tricky button. Sorry. This is for State's Attorney Don Knapp, if I may. Don, can you give us sort of walk through your thought process on the charges against the motorcyclist, and was hate crime consideration given in that case, and if so, why would that not be in your view?
Well, we did charge the gentleman with a hate crime, and I didn't see exactly what was reported after the field arrest and he was booked into the jail, but I spent a little bit of time answering some citizens' questions, explaining the process that when an officer brings an individual to the jail, there are drop-down screen menus and there's a case management system that the officer identifies certain charges. That's a preliminary assessment by the officer, and then if the person remains in custody, we've got 48 hours to get the individual in front of a judge for a bond hearing to determine whether there's probable cause to detain the individual. And during that 48 hours, not just with Mr. Marshall, but with anybody that comes in the jail, we are feverishly gathering information and evidence obtained by our law enforcement experts and making charging decisions. But even those decisions are preliminary. And in this case, with so many officers deployed, they did a great job in getting us information as quickly as they could. But where a normal officer would end a shift and write some reports and get them to us, these officers were right back out on the street. So I guess to answer your question, Eric, yes, hate crime was considered. It was considered right out of the gate, given the circumstances, and the charges were adjusted in our normal course of business. And there is obviously significant video from the event that we still don't have, that the police may or may not have, and it's just going to take us time to gather all of that evidence.
And I would like to add on to that, if I could, too, that's obviously is a focus of our department, that over the, we have had, again, those 4 arrests were directly related to the Target incident. We also had the 5 arrests related to that. We're going back and we are looking and working on these investigations because we have identified multiple other individuals through surveillance, through personal knowledge, who were responsible for either inciting the damage that occurred, for the thefts and the looting, and we will follow through and be bringing additional cases against those individuals very soon. Mr. Lucas?
So I don't know if you saw the 10 o'clock last night. On both sides, we had armed store owners at Junction City in Peoria ready to shoot at anyone that tried to trespass into their businesses. So in Bloomington Normal, what is the policy? Can store owners be armed and shoot if people try to break into their stores?
Like I said, part of our planning and part of our response in this, and working together collaboratively with all of our other agencies in a county-wide approach, if you will, is that so that won't be necessary. Again, individuals that have the right to defend their business. What we're telling individuals is we have a plan. We have been able to affect that plan last night, and we were able to be successful in repelling attacks, I guess, or attempts to get into businesses. And so what I've encouraged other individuals is certainly that may be your right if you're a business owner to defend your property, but we wouldn't want somebody to then be inside that business when we have to respond, because then we're there and we're having to deal with individuals that may be in the business, and we're assuming that the business is closed. We don't know anybody's in there. That's a recipe for disaster, especially if somebody is armed. So our recommendation obviously is that work with us through our communications with them, allow us to work that plan, and then, that is our recommendation. Sierra? You're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So we were wondering how your officers are doing with all this. I know that Sunday night, I think that you had to pull some officers out that received some bumps and bruises during some of the looting and things that were going on. How are your officers handling the situation?
We were fortunate. We had some minor injuries on Sunday evening. We were able to treat that with just standard first aids, serious injuries. And then again, they're very dedicated. They are committed to this. Again, they understand what our plan is, what our approach is, and how effective that was last night. And that goes a long way in instilling confidence in them and hopefully in instilling confidence in the community. I believe Mr. Knapp may have to jump off this call, so I will let it go here till 4:30, and then I'll have to wrap that up, if you will. Mr. Stock?
All right. Thank you, Chief. Are there any misunderstandings you feel the public may have about how the department is handling this or should be doing? For example, Bloomington used gas the other night as there was an encroachment. Do you feel that, or just how would you address those concerns? Some may be suggesting there should be a more aggressive response to what we're seeing in our community.
Well, I mean, certainly I could say that when we were there, again on Sunday evening, the decision was made not to just walk away from the business because we didn't think it was worth it. I mean, it became imperative to the officers or imperative that the safety of the officers was the most important thing at that point. And it became unsafe for us to remain there. So that's why we left. It wasn't because of any stand down order. It wasn't anything like that. Our officers were there doing everything they could to prevent a breach and to prevent the safety of that property there. Again, the crowd grew pretty quickly and then it turned violent. And that I guess the responsibility there is on those individuals that decided to commit the violent acts. They're the ones that escalated that situation. They're the ones that, took that to that next level. And again, for us, I mean, we do have, we have tools available to us as part of our plan. Again, without getting into specifics, we have refined that and we have tools available to us in which we can disperse crowds. We can deal with those. And so that's why, again, it's all woven into our plan that we've been working on since then. And that we've been actually, it's been in place. And like I said, there was a lot about the, obviously for good reason, the damage that did occur, very significant damage, but there was a lot of other good work that was going on that was done and businesses that were able to open the next day that didn't sustain damage because of the work of our staff and others. So we have one more question or opportunity for one more question. Eric?
I'll take it if no one else wants it. I guess there had been discussion about a curfew and you decided against it. What is that something that you would consider at some point, and what circumstances would cause the department to do that, understanding that you would look to sync with Bloomington on such a tactic?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you as part of that, our plan, at this point, and it has been for the last, since this incident kicked off, was that our approach is to work with the businesses and to, again, learn what their hours of operation are, work with them to get the authority so that when individuals come onto their property, that we can automatically and very quickly start dispersing those individuals. So, the message there is anybody who comes to a business after hours, after it's closed, they're going to be dispersed. And at that time, we'll get that instruction, and any individuals that wish to try and avoid that or push back against that, they're going to be subject to arrest. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for your time, and at this point, we'll go ahead and conclude.
Thanks for doing this.
Yep.